All you do. Thank you very much. This is just an update from the coordinating council standpoint. What's been going on? What have we been working on? We've been meeting monthly, and then a little bit here and there with some smaller groups. But in our monthly meetings, we do the traditional routine of what do we need to do each time, what do we need to look over, what do we need to talk through. And so there's a few members of the council that are here today. I saw a few others online. And so if you have questions during this 15 or 20 minute session that I'll help to direct, then I want to leave it up to you to ask questions instead of, because to me it feels like we do this every time and do the same thing. So I don't want to just go over our agendas all the time. But what we have been looking at pretty closely is how we're working with or serving as liaisons to the different councils throughout the conference. What we have found out and what's reported back at each meeting is the vast amount of work that's going on by the different folks in the different councils. Granted, there are some who are still trying to get their feet wet. But when you look around and you say who's doing the yeoman's part of the work throughout the conference, it's being done within the different councils and kind of under their direction. And so it's always a good opportunity to hear back those reports of what's happening in each of the different smaller groups. Wanted to let you know that first of all. This quarterly session was originally listed as a quarterly elders conference, and we looked at the wording of that and the scripture that led us towards that talked about back in the early part of the Doctrine and Covenants when it said that the elders should meet quarterly or more frequently to take care of the business of the church and to do some of those things. Well, when there's no business, I'm talking legislative business to be done, we don't. This is really not so much a conference as it is an elders meeting or a gathering or a session, or you pick the name for it, but it's not. We're not conducting business during this time frame. If that has to happen, and one of these quarterly meetings, as opposed to the kind of the annual conference that we run, if something has to happen where some business has to take place, we may do that at one of these quarterly meetings. We don't know what that would look like. There may have to be just like seating for voting. A lot of that's going to come up in these next couple things, and Brother Mike's going to talk about survey results later and see what kind of input we've been getting from people around the church worldwide, old, young, male, female, priesthood, non-priesthood. We've tried to get everybody's input. So that is something that we'll point out. Second Saturday of every third month, which makes the next meeting October. I think it's the 10th. If that's the second Saturday, October. And then January 9th or 10th, I may have those two dates. But October, January, and then on into April when we're looking at late March or early April for the conference date, whenever they can work that out down at CPRS in Waldo. So those are the dates. This is the first time. I'm fresh out of the sticks of West Virginia, and so big city. This is amazing to me that you can actually get together and like all these different branches in one place. We don't have that back home. We have what you folks at seeing up here on the board. That we're lucky if we can get on a Zoom conference, and so it's really nice to be able to meet with you brothers in person. For those of you who are online with the Zoom, it's good to see some of your names and faces. Okay, so we appreciate you joining in. We are working on a couple of events that are to be coming up soon, and I feel like we're dragging our feet a little bit on the Kirtland Gathering. Kirtland Gathering is September 18, 19, 20. We have some theme thoughts. We have some theme classes. Brother Paul, you did a wonderful job with your opening worship today. Could you do that again at Kirtland? That was of all the things I had written up, it was exactly what you did this morning for our worship. Exactly. Fantastic. I mean, the Spirit just was wonderful. But we're working on that in a way that we had to wait for the LDS church to give us a confirmation on the date. We have that now, and so we want you to be aware of that. There is a registration form. Thank you, Chantel, John, brother, for putting that together for us. And it is now on the conference website page that you can go to that registration form. The quicker we can see how many people are going to be there, the quicker we can get some other things organized. There is a committee working on that Kirtland preparation. I'm going to say it's going forward slowly. We are looking for the individuals who will be teaching classes. That should have been done by now, I think. We're looking for those who will be presiders and allow them the flexibility to work within the confines of the Spirit, to organize some things in conjunction with the coordinating council to see what kind of actual programs and services we would have at the temple. So those things are still in the works. Brother Paul, if input from the high priest group, if there's any direction that you have for anything that we're working with, please let us know. Okay, thank you, sir. So we're looking at a bunch of young guys on this coordinating council. Bunch of young guys. Val, Dan, okay? I don't know if I'm the youngest one, but I'm retired. Okay, so we would like some of the input from those who have some past experience from different things. Leads me to another activity. We've been meeting at the Stone Church beginning of the new year. We're going to have another service at the Stone Church this January 2nd. The CRE office down by Living Hope down the street here is would you call it finished now? It's real close to being finished. I mean, there's access to the buildings, there's meeting rooms, there's libraries, there's some office space. That CRE office is now functional, let's put it that way. Functional, if not really close to finished. And so these are some of the things that we've been working on. Probably the biggest thing that we've been doing is in response to the resolution at the last conference that said that the coordinating council, no, what it said was that the elders of the church, in conjunction with the coordinating council, would go from branch to branch, individual to individual, location to location, and survey, then I don't think it even used the word survey, the members, but to get a feel for what do people really feel about the Conference of Restoration Elders, or the Elders Conference. And so we put together as, I'm going to say rudimentary as possible, but it was like the basics. Hit this survey quickly and find out. It wasn't all based on the survey, but I think what Brother Mike's going to share with you is going to be hopefully enlightening to all of us, but a snippet of the responses that we've been getting, asking people worldwide. And I don't know if we have a worldwide response, but that's where it's going. And the idea is to get this survey. It's in the tidings. There's a link to it. What's that called? A QR code, the little boxes. It's a QR code. You can, boom, just quick link to it. Take 5 or 10 minutes and answer the survey and give as much input as you would like. And that's everybody. And then it's the job of then the coordinating council to go through this and see how we need to respond to that, or see where that leads us next. Now, those are some of the things that the coordinating council has been very actively involved in. There are some tangential things, but I'm going to stop, but I want to see if there's any questions that you have in terms of asking any of those who are here or online about coordinating council or the conference in general. Hearing none. See, I knew it. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, who's the chairman of the coordinating council?
Well, that's me. Yeah, because I got the most experience. Right? So we had elected coordinating council chair. He had some very pressing family issues go on, and so we did a second election, and so there it is. So who is the chair? That's me officially. I don't know what that means. Paul, other than I get to be the guy that talks for 15 minutes. We are really trying to find our role, I'll be honest with you, as the coordinating council and as not just chair, because that just puts me the guy that calls the meetings, right? No. And between the chairman of the conference, we're trying to find out how we're working and what it is we need to do for the conference, to be honest with you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why you moved from West Virginia, so you could be chairman of the planning.
You are 100% right, brother.
And then the question about the office, is there any plans to staff the office like it used to be?
Do you want to speak to that? Jason, you want to?
No plans have been laid, just musings and discussions. It's something that I would like to do, but we haven't actually discussed anything. I've had several people volunteer information on what to do there, but there haven't been any plans laid.
Okay. I would say if you need to use the office for anything, including libraries, get a hold of Jeremy or me. Bob Dixon was really good about being able to get there quickly, unlocked. So if it's not actually manned at any particular time or staffed at any time, I'd say get a hold of one of us, and we can try to find a way to get people in. Bill?
Bob Dixon lives quite a ways away.
No further than I do, or you.
Ken Schmidt would be the one right there on the premises.
Yes. I'm sorry, I was listening to people who were on the committee, but you're right. He's a little closer, and he's right there, if you know.
Question for Brian.
Go ahead, Brian.
One of the things I think would be important, and I'm in a very poor area up here in Maine right now, but I would like to see either the coordinating council or the coordinating council and the chairman, or be it the whole committee, the whole conference, create a vision and direction of this is where we're going. I think we lack in leadership. And for the most part, I think that people want to accept leadership. And so, but sometimes we're afraid to create that vision and worried about what people might be thinking. And earlier, if we take the direction of the Lord and He gives us that direction, then we need to pursue it and not just sit and wait. And so, that's my suggestion.
Thank you, brother. You came through pretty well there, broken up in a little bit, but I think we got everything that you said. So that's something we'll take into account. Some of that will be directed from a little bit of the survey that we have, but listening to the voice of the Lord for that is my number one goal, and then we'll see where opinions come in. Okay. Anybody else, either online or in the room, have questions? Okay, I think we're going to roll right into the next session. So, Brother Mike, if you want to come up, we'll switch this over.
Well, live test. So we're going to try this. My laptop completely froze up, so we had to take it apart, thanks to our handyman back in the booth, Spencer. We'll see if it's going to work. So we're going to talk about the survey. And, you know, it's about numbers, the first part. Obviously, we had a checkbox, and I'm going to go over the results of that checkbox with you. But then we also had some comments, some qualitative analysis, and I suspect that we'll spend most of our time scratching our heads over that section and discussing it. As we determine where do we go from here. So just the demographics of the survey. I want to talk first of all about the survey methods. I think you're all familiar with it. We posted it online. We had some paper. I've only seen 4 paper surveys. Those all came from our branch. They are not incorporated in here yet because I didn't have time. There are also 2 surveys, as you see here, that we received online after I already had this compiled. They are also not included in the results. I'm hoping that at some point in time we have more than 78 responses that we can get a greater analysis. For me, I don't have a target number, but I think we should have at least 100. That might give us, by anybody's estimate, maybe 1% of the Restoration Branch population. I don't think we can make great decisions with representation less than that. So we need to still be publicizing this so that we can get some more results. The results we've gotten are very informative, as you will see. I want to talk a little bit about the integrity of the data. So these were the questions that were on the survey, not very many. The point here was to ask specific questions to get specific information that may or may not make sense to the people taking the survey. And obviously it didn't make sense because the survey people wanted to answer their own questions. And so it's a little frustrating. I'm trying not to make a comment. I'll try to limit the comments. But I just want to share the data with you. But on the integrity of the data, there was a question that said, rank order these 7 things. Apparently, the Saints don't know what rank order means, because out of the 78 responses, only 13 were usable. There's another one where we asked, going forward, what should the representation be at the CRE? The first one was Melchizedek priesthood only, which would imply that's the only item you check. But we had many people that checked more than that. So I didn't disregard those, but I didn't count them in those particular questions. So 78 responses down the line. The ones that were usable, mostly all of them. We had several on question number 6 for the evaluate the effectiveness. There were several left blank. Obviously, we can't do anything with that. But the rank ordering one was a real concern, where 65 of the people that did it incorrectly. First time in a survey, it's probably my fault. I didn't give clear enough instructions. I figured everybody knew what it meant to rank order things. And then the last one, what roles do the Conference of Elders serve and the purpose, that's the one where they said elders only, and then they checked other boxes to go with it. So you can't have both. You can't have elders only and the others. So we only use 62 of those surveys. The voting authority is the one I'm talking about. The last one about the unifying effort, we didn't get to use all 78 of those for various reasons. So we tried to use the data as much as possible. On the 4th question, what is your office in the church? I got responses I didn't know existed for offices in the church. I mean, we probably had twice as many offices added than we had for the list. So I went through and edited those. If they were Melchizedek, I made them elders. If they were members, I made them members. So we tried to salvage that question. So let's talk about who took the survey. So you see here a breakdown. So on the survey, you know, if you've seen it, if you took it, you know that there was an age question, there was a gender question. We did not ask, where do you go to church? We wanted to try to keep it as anonymous as possible. For that reason, we didn't get the international responses versus the domestic responses. I don't know how many of these are from Lexington or Belton or wherever. Yes, sir.
Would it be valid to interpret the offices added to the church, or the wider variety of answers as evidence of semantic drift in our community?
I could agree with that. Semantic drift. I don't want to point out some of the answers that were given because I don't want to embarrass anybody, because they might have been sincere answers. But anyway, so we see that we had of the 76. Now this has 76, and the reason for that is that some of the questions weren't answered. So you'll see a variation of 2 or 3 on the totals. Here we had 76 responded. We have 45 male, 31 female, and you can see the age group there as it breaks down. Overwhelmingly, it's the old people that have responded. Unfortunately, because as we'll see the results, it's unfortunate that we didn't have the 18 to 40, more of the 18 to 45-year-olds, because their opinion is much different than our opinion. And you'll see that here in a minute. But it is what it is. That's why we need to continue pushing this, is so we can... Yes, still, I guess it's still open. Yeah, be open until we close it, I guess. And, we haven't set a time for that. I'm still hoping for that magical number of 100. I don't know if we'll get there. Any observations, questions on this? I know it's just numbers. I tried to make it pretty, but numbers can only be so pretty. Here is a pie graph of how it breaks down by age. Again, the overwhelming majority is older, 60 or older. I did make a mistake. There's a couple of versions of this survey. On the first survey, we added a couple of questions. Well, in order to keep it on one page, which was my goal, make it short, I had to shorten some of the other questions, and in the process of shortening, I left out an entire age group. So that was one of the problems. And then some of the age groups changed, but this is the breakdown of the final version. Very, very underrepresented in the youth group. Perhaps overrepresented in the over 60, but I don't know, maybe this is the demographics of the church now. I thought it interesting because we're getting these responses from people. I wondered, have they even been to conference? Are they speaking from an insider's point of view, or are they just speaking because they've heard something somewhere along the way? So you can see the very sliver of people that have never been doing CRE activity. Biggest part of them were at some activity this year. I include a conference in that and other CRE represented or sponsored activities. So interesting breakdown there. We get to the office question. Again, I've brought these back down to the choices that I gave them. You can see that the elders is a slight plurality here. The members are not far behind them. And then the priests, teachers, and deacons, again, make up a fairly small percentage there, about 11% there. So then we get into, that's who took the survey. Now we get into the actual survey questions. And the first question was, what ministries, what role should the Conference of Restoration elders provide? And I gave them a list. They were welcome to add more, I think, on this one. I don't remember. And yes, they must have been, because one person did. So we asked them, should The Conference Restoration Elders provide youth ministries, women's ministries? Should it provide priesthood and member education? Should it be involved in camps and reunions? And it should be involved, or should it be involved in activities between the branches? And one person gave me another, and I went back to find out what it was. I couldn't find it. I left it here. I don't remember what the suggestion was. So you can see here that the biggest support is for the priesthood education and member education. Still, it's less than a fourth of the people selected that option. That's followed by the inter-branch activities, and then youth and women are fairly close, and then the camps down at the bottom, 1 and 6, opted for or suggested that the CR be involved in camps and reunions. The next question was, how are we doing? These are the things that you ask us to do. How did we do in those things? And so, again, broken down by age group, we can see that in the very underrepresented under 18 age group, see this is 1 was bad and 5 is good. So we got a 3.5 from the youngest of our survey respondents. From the next group, we got a little bit less, 3.26. In the old folks, we got 3. And so you see across the board, the average is 2.95. So that's saying that we're just slightly above average, where 2.5 would be middle, and we're at 2.9-ish. So the services, the ministries that the CRE is providing are accepted. Of course, we have some that are not excited about what's going on. There are some that are exuberant, not very many of those, but there are some that are very excited about the ministries being provided. You can see that the men tend to be a little more accepting of the ministries than the women. Not by much, but it's a slight difference. Trying to remember why I have this. Oh, because one of the questions that threw people for a loop and caused me to disregard their survey on this question. So the top group is everybody, even with the invalid responses. The bottom one includes the invalid responses. You see the difference? It's nothing. The total is the same, but what we see then is that we see a change in the demographics where the 19 to 25-year-olds are much more approving of the ministries than the next age group, the 31 to 45. I chose these age groups because these are the ages of life cycle. So in the under 18, you're at home, you're a minor. The 19 to 25, you're probably a college student, older youth, maybe a young married, different life cycle. Then the next age group, 31 to 45, the one that's missing is that first age group of parenthood. But 35 to 45, you have families maybe, you're raising children, you're concerned about their children's choices, etc. And so that's why we chose these categories. And you can see that there's a big difference between the ratings from the older youth versus the middle parents. I don't have an explanation for that. I'm just giving you the numbers. Maybe you have an idea. And then it rebounds a little bit when they become grandparents. And then, I'm sorry, microphone, please.
I got real bad eyesight. I can't actually see this. Can you just say which were rating things more highly out of those two?
Which one rated more highly? Is that the question?
Yeah, like you said, there's a big difference between the two age groups.
Okay. So on in the 19 to 25 group, the approval rating was 3.8. The next age group, 31 to 45, is 1.78. And then 46 to 60 is right at the average of 3, and the over 60 is, again, right around the average, just slightly less than 3. We are missing an age group, but you notice that the Publications Council is very, very well received by the 19 to 25 age group. Any other questions on those numbers? You know, I had the opportunity this last week to spend the week with organists. I was at an organist convention. And I'm thinking, the look I see in your faces is probably much like the look I had on my face. They're talking about the classics and organs and what have you. So the next question we asked was, what, and I used the wrong word. I used the word function. I should have used the word priority. What are the functions of the church? Now here's the problem, semantic problems. These responses came in as, what is the function of the CRE? My question was not, what is the function of the CRE? My question is, what is the function of the church? But apparently, the respondents of this survey cannot draw a distinction between the church and the CRE. And that's a problem. As you'll see later in the surveys, their responses showed that's a problem. But these are the responses. So this was a rank order. So when you rank order something 1 through 7, so so the responses are across the top, 1 through 7. 1 was the most important, and 7 was the least important. And many respondents said, how can these items ever be the least important? Well, they're not unimportant. They're just not as important as some other things. And I wouldn't expect everybody to have the same importance. Missionary work is important to some people. Music, youth ministry, that's important to others. But what we should find out is every category should have the same number of responses, because every survey has 7 responses. So this is the question where 65 of the responses were invalid, because you see that we have 190 people said that this is the most important. What they did is they just went down and checked 1s beside everything, or one person did 7s beside everything. So this is what the corrected looks like. We have 13 valid responses. 13 people followed the rules and rank ordered. And you see that, so the lowest number is best. What is lowest on this? Corporate worship. What's the highest number on here? International ministries. And don't we have it just backwards? Don't we have it just the other way around? We spend most of our money on missionary work. Now, I'm not saying that's wrong, but I'm saying the people don't see that as our highest priority. They're not saying it's not unimportant, or it's not important. They're saying it's not the highest priority. But that's our strength. That's what Conference of Restoration Elders provides, is international ministry. But the people don't see that as the primary purpose of the church. And any questions about any of those other numbers there? So corporate worship was first, and then we have domestic outreach and temporality is about the same. And then we have prepare for Zion as an important role of the church. And then it's rounded out by reconciliation and youth ministries and international outreach.
Are you saying international outreach, the highest?
Is the lowest. Because this is rank order, put 1 as the highest priority and 7 as the lowest priority. Again, it's hard to say that international outreach is not important. We're not saying that. What we're saying is that if we had limited resources, then we should focus on the number 1 item instead of the number 7 item. Jason?
Can you clarify again, this is in relation to the conference or the church? How did you want that answered?
The question was, what are the functions of the church? CRE didn't exist in that question, but many people read CRE into it based upon their comments, which we'll see here in a minute. So again, the survey has faults, but I didn't want to include invalid responses in with the mix. But you see overall, which is exactly what we should see, that the average should be 4 because that's in the middle. And so this is a balanced response, although there are only 13 of them. Let's look at the comments. I think this is going to be the most telling part. I don't know how much time you want to spend on these comments. The first one, and so rather than me going through and try to analyze these, I let AI do it. I have some interesting experiences with AI. I figured I could trust them with this because it's just crunching of comments. First question, what's the role of the CRE? The response was, and you see at the bottom here, the summary is, the people respondents are saying, be a unifying, supportive, ministry-focused facilitator, not an authority. Various people have various definitions of what that means. We see here in the middle that CR is perceived as, based upon the comments, some people need it. Some people appreciate it. Some people distrust it. Most people misunderstand what it is. Many say if it's reformed, it can be a valuable resource. If it's not reformed, it's either a danger or irrelevant. And I think in the life cycle, every organization has a life cycle, and based upon what I've seen in the comments, based upon what we have experienced in our meetings, and in the response to those meetings, is that we might be on the downhill side of the life cycle. And one of the reasons why we decided to do a survey, we wanted to see if this is where we are. And I think the survey results suggest that we are on the end of our life cycle unless we do something different. Or do something better. Don't have to necessarily do something different. Paul?
Talking to a couple of guys the other day about some of this stuff, and one of them made the comment that
He feels like a lot of the saints think that the CRE thinks it's the church. And I said, well, in the front cover of every tidings, it plainly says we're not the church. He said, yeah, that's what it says. So there's that misconception, too, that we are the church, when all along we've said we are not the church. Surveys are good for that.
Yeah, surveys, they don't answer every question, particularly when you have such a small sampling of it. But I will say that there is this cloud of rumors, people who don't know anything about us, but they've heard a rumor from somebody else who heard it from somebody else, and you know how it works. And that's where that idea comes from. Well, look at them, they're acting like the church now. Nobody who has mentioned that has given examples of how that is so. So it leads me to believe it's rumor mongering. Could have some basis, but they didn't state it. Next question is, what about the effectiveness of the CRE? What were the comments? Yes. Who? Oh, Val, sorry.
Could it just be that perception is the issue? And for everybody, perception is reality. Doesn't make it reality, but how we perceive it, that's our reality.
That's exactly right. The definition of, sorry, I don't want to get on a tangent, but when you think about anger, can anybody make you angry? It's a choice. They present you the opportunity, and you can choose to be angry or not. And part of that definition is real or perceived injustice. So it doesn't matter, Val, like you said. It doesn't matter if we've really been offended. If we think we have, then it's all that matters. It's been, right?
In regard to that, I might say this. None of the commandments are feelings. None of them. And blood pressure is a number. Commandments concern what you do, and your choices are about what you do. And so if you have yourself under control and you practice long suffering, then, maybe you can build the habit of not getting angry and so forth. But the number on the blood pressure test, that's not directly a choice. And that's what I mean by, can someone make you angry? Well, they can certainly make your blood pressure go up.
Under certain circumstances, as you started your comment with, we can control that. We can control what we do. We can control how we hear it. 30 years as an official in sports, Little League sports, you learn to laugh at the stupid things that they're being told to you or yelled at you. And I was guilty from time or two of laughing at the coaches right in their face. And so your response begins with, how are you hearing this? Are you perceiving that they're just venting? Let them vent. If you're perceiving that they're going to follow you to the car afterwards and further this conversation, that's a different issue. But anyway, we'll move on. What is the effectiveness of the CRE? What are the comments? This type's a little small. I hope you can read it. The summation was that the CRE's effectiveness is inconsistent, diminished, or hindered by internal issues. I don't want to offer comment. And so the themes that made up this conclusion were that it has negligible effectiveness, declining participation, there's a lack of unity and internal division, there's an unclear mission, communication gaps, and structural issues. There are concerns about foreign missions and lack of follow-up. And there's a perceived misalignment with scriptural or historical precedents. So many times in these comments we see that, well, they need to return to Section 104, they need to return to the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants, we need to do this, that, or the other to align with scriptures. But the problem with that is, we're not the church. And if we were claiming to be the church, those would be true statements. Yes, we would need to go do these things to be the church. And as Jeremy pointed out, in Section 83, that's what the church is. Those who are recovering God's people and gathering them to Zion. That's the church. We're just trying to be a resource in that process, but people don't see it that way. All right, the rank ordering question. Now, this was the actual question, and maybe I worded it wrong. Rank order the following church functions by checking the 1 for the most important and the 7 for the least important. Now, many people, the comments will show you that, many people said, well, none of them are least important. Well, when you're comparing them to each other, one of them has to have priority. We were talking about, I think Brian mentioned it, you have a joint banking account. There's only one person's Social Security number on that account. I don't care how many people you have on it, there is only one Social Security number attached to it. Guess what? That makes you the go-to-jail person. That makes you responsible. I don't care how many people you have on there, you become responsible for it. And so that somehow in my mind related to the fact that there are no important or unimportant. There are priorities. What should we have as our priority? So these are the comments. This is AI summation. Respondents are grappling with the fundamental mission of the CRE and the broader restoration movement. We wouldn't argue with that, would we? The computer may have gotten that one right. But this is where it goes further. It shows this divide between the younger ones, the less than 40, and the older ones. This case is older than 60, so we have this little gap in the middle that don't count anywhere. But According to the youth, missionary work is empty unless it focuses on helping the helpless. And true reconciliation happens organically when individuals focus on Christ rather than church politics. So the youth are looking at this, and Jeremy and I were talking about the way up here. Do you realize that anybody who's 40 years old or younger was never a member, or was, let me rephrase that, was not involved in the church politics of the 80s? But they grew up with the parents say, can you believe what they're doing now? We talked about the the Saints Herald earlier. Somebody mentioned that. I thought, yeah, the Saints Herald was good for getting my blood pressure up. Whenever it come out, I read it, and I'd be so fit to be tied, I just want to throw it away. But the children didn't experience that personally, but they heard it, they felt it. And so now we're seeing that they're parents now. They're trying to find their way in the church. And not only this church, but if you look at the demographics in all the denominations across the U.S., this group is suffering. And we're no different. The older people, so first of all, the one-word description of the younger people is pragmatic. What makes sense is what they're asking. They look at this and say, this doesn't make sense, or that makes sense. But they're looking at us and saying, this doesn't make any sense. But the older people, we're the ones, I shouldn't include me in this because I was not around when the CRE first was formed. And I haven't been, because of job circumstances, I haven't been active over the last 20 years. But we're the ones that created this thing. And we're going to be the last ones to say, we don't need it anymore. And that's what the survey is saying, and that's what the comments suggested. But there is a division as to how we go forward. Few people, if any, in this age group are ready to abandon it. Going forward is the question. And the first option is that it should be completely bypassed until the entire church is formally organized. I don't know that I have an explanation of that statement. The opposite of that is to accentuate corporate worship in branches and fulfill the Great Commission. Now, these are computer terms here. These are not any specific responses. But is this not where we are? We either set it aside until it works, or let it work in the context where it's designed to work in this coordination between priesthood members. I don't think in our mission statement ever mentions branches, does it? It just mentions coordination between priesthood members. Is that right? It says in the growing number of restoration branches. In the branches, but they have to come out of the branches, and not as a branch representative, but they come as a member of the priesthood. So somewhere over the course of the last 40 years, we've, according to the comments, according to my observation, according to some of your comments, we've maybe stepped away from that original mission, tried to take on more responsibilities, and the people see that. And for the most part, they don't accept that. Now, some do. Some are further ahead of us than we are. All right, so then at the end of the survey, there was just a general, one more question. The question was, should the mission be modified to provide voting authority to the following groups? Now, this was prefaced by the statement of the purpose of the CRE. It was to provide association of Melchizedek priesthood members. And then the question is, should it be modified to add these following groups? And of course, the options we gave them were the CRE. Oh, sorry, we're still on voting. Sorry, one step ahead. Voting authority. We asked them, should it be Melchizedek only? First question. Second question was, should we add Aaronic priesthood? Then should we add women, youth? And then the question was, we don't care about membership or age, which is a very dangerous question, but I'm surprised at the number of people who selected it. That if I didn't highlight those results, but we can go back to those if you want, but that option has nothing to do with church, has nothing to do with priesthood, it's just a social club. If we don't have any standards for membership. Anyway, again, the breakdown is between the younger people and the older people. Ambivalence versus urgency is how the computer summarizes this. The younger people, the 31 to 45 age group, they continue to voice hesitation or a lack of definitive knowledge on these specific structural mechanisms. As has been pointed out earlier today, is that we assume everybody knows what we're talking about when we talk about, pick a topic, baptism of the Holy Spirit, baptism by water, laying on of hands. We assume that everybody knows what we're talking about. But according to this statement, that the younger people are not quite sure about these things, at least in the context that we're talking about them. Now, this is all based upon the comments that they've made. Granted, if you notice the demographics, that this age group they're talking about was less than 15 people, I believe, less than 20 at most. So we're talking about a small part of the whole thing, but they're an important part, no matter how small they are. The older group, we need to change it. Question is, how? We want immediate fundamental changes to how the organization operates. Now, the final question. No, I'm not there yet. Unity. What role does a CRE have in unity? These are the responses, a summation of the responses. All age groups emphasize one thing. Unity is not man-made. Unity is a spiritual condition. It's not an organizational achievement. It has to focus on Christ. We have to be humble. And local independence, they've defined this as the branches are already working together. Why do we need the CRE to tell us what to do? And from that context, that's a good question, because we're not telling them what to do. We're a resource. The library. You have a Bible school vacation church school program at your church, and you need material. You go to the library, the restoration library, CRE your library, and find a resource. You need teaching resources, you need speakers, you need ministry out of town. You come to CRE for resources. We don't come to you, CRE doesn't come to the branch and say, okay, today you have to do this. That's not the purpose. That's not what we've ever done. But this comment, I'm reading into this, comes from this foundation of this is what the CRE is doing. We don't need you to do that because we're already doing it on our own. All right, so that's the unity. Does the CRE have a role in unity? Remember, there are three options. The first one was no. The second one was the CRE needs to encourage needs to become a representational body, representations from the branches. And the last option was the CRE needs to facilitate an association of branches. I'm not quite sure in the language on that what the intent is, but those are the 3 points that we gave them. And these are their comments. And finally, last count, I think there were 60 general comments at the end. Comments about anything you want to say, although some of them weren't shy about saying that during the survey. But this is just a summation. I have 2 pages here. The first one is a summation. The second page is a list of things we can do. And I think that's probably a good ending point for us to start in the next discussion on these. So the survey points out by the comments that there is a mix of deep structural exhaustion, primarily from the youth. They're tired of seeing people bickering. They grew up in that environment. They'd like to outgrow it, but we won't let them. Generational despair, again, the youth versus the old people, and persistent spiritual hope. So this is what keeps everybody here. This is what keeps everybody coming back. They have hope that someday this will all make sense. On the debate over whether we should dissolve or not, gives you a male respondent, 46 to 60 age group, says, with all due respect to many good men within CRE, I think it should dissolve. So many years of questionable priorities and leadership. Again, it comes back maybe to the perception thing. It comes back to history. Maybe at some point in time there have been some decisions that the public didn't like. I mean, it's been going on for 40 years. It seems like every time a little bit of this and a little bit of that. This person says, and he speaks for others, it's just time to throw in the towel because of what's happened and what's not happening. In the case for preservation, we should keep it. Why? Because too many good things have come from the CRE to give up the ship. Another reminds leaders not to let dwindling numbers shake your faith. So would we be having this conversation if we were still getting 100 to a conference? I don't know. We won't know until we get back to 100. Temporary bridge. Multiple comments suggest the CRE should pivot back to being a temporary stepping stone rather than trying to become a permanent fixture. I don't know the exact history of the CRE. Maybe some of you know, but maybe in the beginning it was just designed to be this temporary placeholder. And temporary has lasted over 40 years now. So that temporary has now become somewhat permanent. And over the course of time, we've decided, that's a strong word, it has been decided, maybe not we, maybe it was forced upon us. But over the course of time, we decided, well, maybe we can help with this, maybe we can help with this. All of which is a departure from the original point that priesthood members could come together and figure out what to do in these dark and cloudy days. Now, I don't think it's a bad thing that we have helped with the youth and the women and all those other things that have come out of it. Is that what we're supposed to be doing? Those are the questions that are being asked. And some people say no, and some people say yes and more. Some people still want more out of the CRE. The computer has summarized what we need to do next. 5 points. Need to clarify and limit constitutional boundaries. In layman's terms, that means we need to tell them what we're doing, who we are, why we're here, and what we're doing about it. That CRE is an auxiliary, not a governing body, and that maybe we need to step back and show that we're not an ecclesiastical hierarchy that exercises authority over branches. Step 1. Step number 2, I don't know if these are necessarily in order. Step number 2, we need to pivot resources to domestic and youth ministry. So the concern behind this is, I don't know if he goes into this. So the results of the survey, the priorities of the church, remember the international ministry was the lowest priority, and youth and women were higher. They weren't the highest, but they were higher. And so when we look at the budget, we see that the budget is expended accordingly. And so the comment here isn't, this doesn't even know what the budget is, but the comment is that segment of the youth who are becoming discouraged because we're not focusing on the things they want us to focus on. Not necessarily them. This wasn't a look at us type thing. It was, what about the people across the street? Why do we need to go to the Philippines when we have people across the street? And so that was their mindset. And so that's point number 2, that our resources need to be more in line with our environment. There's probably a better word than that. Number 3, decentralize access and governance. I think we're already doing this. Implement robust digital streaming. Remote voting mechanisms. I don't know why we would need that. Regional sub-conferences. It is impressive that the people in Michigan and Ohio and West Virginia have, sorry, excuse the language, a district conference. Is that what you call it? Regional. They have a regional conference, but we don't have that I know of anywhere else. Did they have it in Washington, out Seattle? Is there some sort of a conference out there? No. Anyway, that's a suggestion. To help with the geographically isolated saints. Number 4, initiate factional diplomacy. So we need to have open, formal, humble dialogue with the leadership of the Remnant Church, the JCRB, and the JCRB, to fulfill the membership's overwhelming desire for genuine cross-organizational reconciliation. Remember, this comes out of the comments from the people. People aren't always right, but I think we at least need to consider that they have, there's 80 of them and there's 20 of us. And finally, we need to fix basic communications, which is an ironic statement because, as you notice, the Publications Council had the highest ratings for satisfaction. But now we're saying here that we need to clean up the way we communicate. We need to establish reliable volunteer hours for the physical office. We need to regularize the Tidings of Zion publication and other practical ministry training classes. So, 5 points that the computer thinks that we should implement to take care of the dissenting comments that I gave it. And that's the end of what I have on the survey. Questions? Anything you want to see again? All right. Thank you.